Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about going from a full-time job in office to a remote or freelance gig. So let's get into it. So the question in question today was a bit of a story, and let's see if I can read it. Hi Frederick, I would like to request a video or comment about your recommendations for how to transition from a full-time in-office 9 to 5 to either freelance gig or full-time remote work. I am an American junior dev with only about a year's worth of experience doing React and React Native, but I live in a country, Vietnam, where even senior developers rarely make more than $1,000 or $1,500 a month. So while I think you normally recommend to stay in office for several years early in your career, I'd rather move into more lucrative opportunities sooner rather than later. And do you have any advice? Thank you very much. So the short answer here is that with that amount of experience, I think that you should have a look at remote work first and foremost. Let me explain. So if you are in a situation where you really do want to kind of, well, I'm not going to say bite the bullet, but you want to go into freelance work or remote work immediately, even when you're not at that high level of an experience level, I think that the best thing for you is still to try your best to get a remote position. So if you're working in another country, I mean, there are plenty of international companies that will hire remote workers. You will still face the same sort of predicament, as you can imagine, with being a junior developer and getting a job as a remote worker. It can be trickier in some cases when you want to be a remote junior dev, because as I've said before, I hope that this makes sense, guys. I just want to make this clear. I'm not saying that you can't be a freelancer if you want to, or that you can't be a remote worker. It's just that when you are a junior developer, it's very important for you to gain a good foundation skill. Like your skills need to have a solid base, because that is the thing that is going to either like it's the thing that is going to give you a market value, and it's the thing that is going to make sure that you have a good time progressing through your career, as opposed to like barely surviving. And that is the reality for a lot of freelancers that they go into the industry early. They can struggle quite a lot, because it's actually in many cases it can be very tricky to get customers. So if you have that with you, I think that you should take a look at the remote opportunities that you can have, and then be mindful of the same sorts of things I've said in the past about remote work. And especially as a junior, you can treat this as a very similar thing to working in-house. Like, it's important for you to make good connections, have someone on the inside of the company that you can trust and that can communicate with you. Make sure that you're active in conversations. Make sure that you video and do conference calls as much as possible, because just being remote doesn't necessarily mean that you're working alone, because that's the thing that you're trying to avoid if it's all possible. Because if you're working completely alone, as I said, that's the thing that is going to hurt you gaining those foundation skills. Now, if you're deciding on, after all, that, well, being a remote worker is not really your thing, you really want to do the freelance thing, then your primary focus needs to be to create a customer base. That's the number one thing for you now, and that is something you should be aware of, where that can take a little while. In order for you to build up a brand, especially if you're a junior developer, you're going to have to take a really long, good, hard look at your CV, brush up on portfolio sites, get involved in, if you can't like just direct call people, you might have to do some marketing, you might have to join freelancer platforms and things like that. There's a lot that's why I'm just trying to give you a push in a more usually comfortable direction, which is to have some skills before you do this. Because if you do this, you should know that you're not going to just be able to focus on your coding. as a freelancer. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into surviving as a freelancer or a one-person consultancy. You basically are running your own company at the same time that you need to do your coding, and that it might be perfect for you if you're really into that stuff, and you might make it work absolutely flawlessly, but it can also be something that is a little bit rougher on you, and that's where you have to decide for yourself, what do you want to focus on? Do you want to gain some skills, or do you want to be your own boss, like right off the bat? So what I want you to take away from this is that if you're looking to transition from a office software developer, or if we can call it that, a company software developer, to a freelancer or a remote worker or something like that, you can absolutely do that. I highly suggest to this specific person, because you are still fairly early in your career, to try the remote thing first, because if you have the remote thing, you're still going to have peers, you're still going to have coworkers, and if you play your cards right, you can still make it work even though you are remote. As long as you're not working alone, everything is peachy. If you do, on the other hand, decide that no, you know what, this remote thing is not really my thing, I want to do freelance and I want to be my own boss, put heavy investment into making sure that you market yourself, that you brand yourself, and honestly, that's going to be the biggest challenge for you, most likely, just to get a customer base that you can survive off. And then after that, you might have some time over to actually look into your coding skills. That's why I usually argue that you should go the other way around, because by the time, if you've already gotten the codings, the foundation coding skills, you can actually buy yourself the luxury of focusing only on your company, because you know that you don't have to be nervous about the fact that you might not be able to code at the skill level that you need in order to make the customer happy. Have a great day.